right, Pablo. Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad you're doing another round of podcasts. I've been listening for a long time, so it's nice
Oh,
to
yeah.
be on the other side.
Thanks for listening, man. Yeah, this is it's exciting to get back into it.
Yeah, this is my first podcast appearance, so
Oh, nice.
extra
Cool.
special for me.
Well, it'll be easy, man. These aren't
Yeah,
tough.
as long as you promise.
Yeah. I guess if we can start by if you want to kind of introduce yourself and what's your firm and your role.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Blake Tomilloso-Rhinehart. I'm a landscape architect and a founder and CEO of BLOCS. BLOCS is a California based landscape architecture studio focused mostly around multifamily, senior living, and mixed use developments. We create outdoor spaces that work for people who use them and for the clients who are responsible for building and operating them. And we start a lot of our projects really listening to the people that will use our projects, our clients, because what's really the most important to us is kind of understanding what success means for those individuals on each one of our projects.
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks for that. The assisted living portion of the work you're doing, I mean, it's pretty similar to the multifamily stuff, right? As far as scope, how did that come about? How did you start to kind of make your way into that those types of projects?
Yeah, we kind of stumbled on it at a past firm. I did, one or two of those kind of projects. Didn't think much of it, and then when I started Blocks about 6 years ago, that was one of our first large projects. Was an old client and did assisted living, um, and we really started to kind of fall in love with doing it because we had a lot of experience in multifamily housing, single family housing, things like that. And what we found was different on these assisted living and senior living projects is people really value and use the outdoor spaces. A lot of times when we do, a big podium multifamily project and we do a nice seating area with a big 12-person table, maybe a resident will use that once or twice a month at most. When we go to these assisted living projects, people are in the courtyards, are in the outdoor spaces 100% of the time, all day long. It's super valuable and important to them. That's where they find community. And that really started resonating with us. So we started kind of focusing more and more on those projects.
Yeah, it's the it goes into the programming, right, of the day to day of the facility, the outdoor usage. At least that's what we were when I worked on a couple of assisted living projects, and yeah, the staff is very involved in how those spaces are laid out and what features should be included because yeah, you're right, they're used, from dusk to dawn, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
from dawn to dusk all day. Um, yeah, cool. How did you? Maybe we can kind of go back a little bit and go into your school. Did you mention where you went to school? Did you where do you attended?
No, I went to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo.
To Slow, right? That's
Yeah.
right. Um, do you start working while you were uh, i taking classes, or did you wait till you were done? How did that? How did you transition from your education into your career? How did that happen?
Yeah, during college, I had one quick internship at a design build firm, I think my sophomore year, something like that. But most of my summers I spent actually working as a lifeguard at the pool to pay for school. Um, And then after I graduated, it wasn't a great time to get a job. So I looked for a while, was still lifeguarding, finally got a role down in San Diego at another design build, landscape, and maintenance company. So I started kind of working for them as their landscape designer, but also realized it was kind of more of a construction manager role, a sales role, kind of a little bit of everything in a small family business.
So, did you were you living down in San Diego? Did you make the move, or was it
Yeah,
a
I made
long
the
time?
move. I was down there for about a little under 2 years, I think.
Okay. Um, and I mean, it's a you said it's a small design build. How did that? I guess that sort of working learning environment, was it something you expected coming out of school? How did that? How did that hit you? I guess is what I'm asking.
It was definitely not something I expected nor particularly wanted, but it was the only thing that was going to pay me. So I took it. And it ended up being, I think, kind of one of the more educational and pivotal points of my career that I would never have picked for myself, right? At graduating, I would just expect to go to a design firm, applied for all the design firms in California, couldn't get a job, right? That's what I expected. But I think going to a small design build place taught me a lot about construction. It taught me a lot about working with construction crews, respecting the work that these individuals that are actually building the projects do and how much they know about how to build things more than we draw. And then the other thing, I think it was a good first exposure to me now running a business, kind of getting into sales and actually having to talk with homeowners, presenting designs, not only from, you know, this is a beautiful design, but also here's how much it's going to cost. Are you interested in doing it? Can we have that deposit today? Those kind of conversations when I was, 21, 22, I think kind of really helped me as I got older in this career.
Yeah, it's not really stuff you're kind of learning in school, right? It's not, at least not in a consistent way.
No, and in school or even in like a design firm, you don't get
Yeah,
much into construction when you're young. You definitely aren't selling projects, things like that.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's you're the CAD assistant, right? For for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Um, so did you go straight from the San Diego firm into your own business? Where did you land prior to where you're at now?
No, I worked a couple places before. So I, after that design build company, I went and got a job at a design firm up in Orange County. I worked there for 4 or 5 years doing all sorts of multifamily, single family projects, mostly focused in housing. Um, I then opened up or helped open up their satellite office up in Oakland. I ran that for them for 3 or 4 years. Did that, felt was in a partnership agreement with them to become a minority partner. That didn't quite work out, so I jumped to another firm for a year or two. COVID hit, was there for a little while through COVID, and then finally was able to put the pieces together and start my own firm.
Nice. So this was something. I'm just curious. How long from like having that initial thought to actually opening up the firm? What was that time period like?
Um, Slightly hard to say because I think even in college, I always imagined myself either taking over and running a firm or starting my own practice. So I think it was always something in the back of my mind. Like even when I first graduated, I was doing like little, $200 projects for my parents' neighbors and parents' friends and things like that. So it was always in the back of my mind. And then as that partnership agreement didn't quite work out, it gave me kind of the opportunity to stop and realize why I would want to start a firm and how it was important to me and what I wanted that to look like. So that was probably like a 4 or 5 year process of really starting to think about it, kind of narrowing what our focus would be. Um, and one thing that was always important to me was really kind of to make it really intentional and not just start a firm because we had a couple projects and just wanted to do it. I wanted to really, from the beginning, figure out what we wanted to do, what was important to us, what we wanted to focus on, and build it from there.
Yeah, that's it's good to have a plan, right? Going into it. Gets a little harder when you're trying to. I mean, you can. It's possible, but if you're trying to figure stuff out along the way, kind of you get in your own way, right? Of between the work and trying to operate the business. Speaking of the business, I know you recently hired, right? Is that a recent thing? Um,
Yeah, about a year ago, I think we brought on
yeah.
staff. Yeah.
How did you go about realizing that you needed to hire, and what was that process like as far as finding the right people and onboarding them? What was that like?
Yeah. Why we hired, I think I think summer last year, I realized that we were busy enough to where I was doing so much production work that it was taking away from running the business. So I realized that I was basically just trying to hold on, do the work, get it done. There was no effort on long term planning, no effort on new business. It was basically just survival. And I realized that if we were going to continue on like that, which the business probably could have done, right? I could have just gritted my teeth, got the work done, work would have keep coming in, but the business would have never grown. And that was always really important to me, was growing into a full design firm. So at that point, I realized I kind of had to take the leap and take the risk of bringing on individuals. Um, I was pretty nervous about it, having to pay people. So we set up kind of a part-time structure for individuals. Put a job posting out, got a ton of great responses, got a good referrals from people, and ended up hiring 3 part-time people to help us out. And we all went about it doing mostly senior level individuals, which I also thought was important because part of me needing to free myself up was not being able to have the time to train and help people. So we hired all people with like 8+ years experience, which I think would really worked out for us.
It's very cool. And you're those people are still with you. You hired. So you have a it's a 4-person firm now. Where are you at now?
Yeah, still the same. If you include me, we're 4 people.
4 people. Very
Yeah.
cool. Have you noticed any increase in the I don't know size or type of workload that you've taken on since you're hired? Is it did you stay sort of the same? Have you noticed any kind of increase or decrease in the workload?
Yeah, we got busier. So, um, and that was both because capacity, and we also started, once those people got hired, that's when I really started doing a lot more business development. Um, so we got the opportunity for one, more of the same size projects that we're working on, and it freed us up to start pursuing larger projects. So we've been able to kind of grow both the number of projects we're working on, our overall average contract fee, and the type of work we have been working on kind of expanded as well.
Very cool. I might need to pick your brain maybe offline about how you structure that part time with the senior level type of person because that's something that I've been thinking about actually working on um, finding the right person that would kind of step in the way you're talking. But it's also it's very specific, right? So I want to make sure I have the right person. So it's gonna take some time. I've I'm not putting it off, but it's taking time to either find the right person, and then there's that the plan is to build up that relationship before prior to bringing them on full
Yeah,
time completely, right? Yeah,
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 it's tricky. You have to find, it has to be a working for a small firm, and like I'm assuming you'll do like a remote firm, a small remote firm. All is like extra challenging, I think, and it's super important to find the right person. I think it took us like 5 or 6 months to hire, and then I would say it took almost another 6 months to get like everyone up fully up to speed, where we were like really running and moving. So it's quite a process.
yeah. That's exactly what my thoughts have been on that. But yeah, very cool. Um, do you have any? Are there any? I was talking. I just did a podcast with the Land Effects guys, and we talked about some of the projects that I get excited about. Right. So is there anything that you're excited about coming through that you're currently working on? Any projects that fun projects or things that you can think about that you when they comes through, you're like, oh, cool, I get to work on this.
Yeah, we as part of that business development and warm outreach, we kind of reached out to everyone in our network, 100 or so people that I knew. And through that, we actually got a project from a construction management firm that we worked with 4 or 5 years ago. They're doing pre-con actually for a church out in Roseville, which is a suburb of the Sacramento area. We haven't really done any church work before, but they're putting a big new amphitheater and worship center in their space. And we're designing a giant plaza park like experience for them that kind of transitions between their existing facilities with their congregational daycares, offices, cafes that they have and this new worship center. So that one's been um, really interesting, both because it has more budget and has the space to do something interesting, and it's a work type that we don't typically do. So for our team, it's been kind of refreshing to kind of do something different and kind of flex in our creativity that way.
Are you? I know you're hired out. You have your employees. Are you offering any kind of internship in your area? Do you have plans for anything like that?
Um, we don't have any plans for it, and I hesitated because it would be really something I would like to do. I've always kind of liked mentoring younger staff or trying to help people out wherever I can. But I think where the company is, we're trying to double every year our revenue. And with that, we don't really have the extra time or space to take on, a intern. That's why we kind of have the senior level individuals. Everyone kind of has to be kind of laser focused on getting these projects done, hitting our profitability goals so we can grow. I think once we kind of get to a good stable point where, we've grown, we've doubled every year, couple years, then I think it'd be nice to bring on both interns, and we want to start bringing on kind of some younger staff, fresh grads, things like that.
Very cool. Um, Maybe we can talk a little bit about you and I are part of a sort of a meetup group, right? We meet up once a month with other landscape architects, designers, design build people. Um, I think we've been doing that for what a good part of a year now, right? Or maybe just over a year
Yeah.
with those monthly meetings. Is there anything that you've picked up from those meetings that anything you've learned, anything that you've kind of taken and implemented yourself in your firm and the way your day to day operates?
Um, the thing I think I kind of picked up the most is how everyone everyone's experience across the industry is very different and very unique. Um, and everyone's working on very different things, whether it's design build or residential design or commercial design. But it's very interesting how everyone kind of comes down to very similar problems. Maybe the scale's different or the client type's different, but at the end of the day, every business owner is kind of facing the same thing. So it's been interesting to see how different industries or different sectors of the industry handle that. Like some of the work that the residential folks are doing, they're able to provide like a much more kind of hands-on or detailed level of service. Like for instance, one of the individuals on the residential team goes out and provides like consultations, which is like something we would never do. um, like we wouldn't go out to our developers empty lot and say, all right, this is what you can do. We would wait and get the contract. But all those things are like such good ways to build relationships with their clients that we don't get the opportunity to do. So when I see that, I'm like, wow, they get like an hour and a half of like FaceTime with the client at the beginning of a project rather than just, a Zoom call or a phone call or a couple emails. I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting that they get to do that.
Yeah, I think on my end, you're right. It is sort of that client build relationship building, right?
Yeah.
I know on my end is we don't, generally speaking, we don't really meet with anyone on site unless there's a contract in place, right? It's part
Yeah,
of that,
exactly.
part of the first steps to get going. Um, yeah, that's you're right. Everybody comes up against those sort of same issues and problems, which has been great for me because I get to hear everybody kind of their solutions and how they've handled certain things. And yeah, there's plenty of times when I've been able to reach back and think about those interactions and think about how I'm going to respond, right, or how I can deal with a certain situation. Yeah, it's been very helpful. Um, you mentioned your plan is to grow the firm. Do you have a number of people in mind? Do you have a certain goal that you'd like to reach and where you'd be comfortable with?
Yeah, not necessarily on people per se, but I'm trying to get to 1 million in revenue. Um, by the time I'm 40, so 3 years from now. And that's just kind of a pie in the sky number that I picked out, you know.
It's a good number.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's, you know, nice round number.
Yeah,
So that would be nice. It was kind of similar to the amount of projects we managed when I ran the satellite office. We had kind of like a separate $1 million chunk of work we were doing. Um, so that was always kind of a good, you know, felt like a good amount of projects, good scale of projects. And I think we had about three people, three landscape people working there. So somewhere around that size was always kind of where I want to get. And I don't think I ever really wanted to be, you know, some giant firm, right? But I do want to grow and have a full team, you know, 10, 15 people, somewhere around there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good. I think that's still kind of relatively small to mid
Right.
size, right? Yeah, yeah. I know you talked a little bit in our group meetings about your marketing efforts and how that rolled out. Um, can you talk a little bit about how you developed that and how you're implementing it, how that all works out?
Yeah. So I actually picked it a lot up from an architectural consultant group I joined called The Studio. Um, so it provides a lot of information on that, but it's basically going through every person you've ever worked with, people you went to school with in the industry, people you tangentially touched on a project, and cold emailing them and asking them, hey, is there anyone that you have in mind that would need our services? Um, and I was pretty shocked on how many responses you get and how helpful people were. And also, even people we were working with that we emailed, you know, that we talked to, you know, once a week about projects. When I emailed them the separate email, they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't realize you were open to more work or looking for more clients." And then they would refer you to someone or say, "Oh, great, we have this new project for you." You know, it's just like this little nudge that lets people remember you or know that you're interested. That, you know, really kind of worked out for us, and we found it a lot more successful than, you know, kind of the more, I don't know, I want to call it traditional marketing like Instagram or emails or things like that.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's funny you say traditional marketing, but I don't know that a lot of firms are. Well, I guess I mean I don't know. Would you consider that traditional, right? As far as posting on LinkedIn, Instagram, is it marketing or because a lot of the work that I think generally speaking is maybe for you and me, and I think for a lot of the larger firm owners, it's word of mouth, right, and that
Yeah,
relationship building. So I don't
for
know
us.
if I do a lot of the Instagram stuff. We have the podcast. We do a lot of LinkedIn posts. I don't have a way to actually gauge how effective that is, as opposed to that client building relationship, right? Which is actually going to get you some results. Yeah, so that's like you said that reaching out to all your basically all your contacts that you may have interacted with at some point. I've done the same thing in the past, and yeah, it's funny how much that just reaching out opens up opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally right. I guess Instagram and LinkedIn isn't necessarily traditional for
Right.
marketing. It's
Like,
all
yeah, because
word
I
of
know
mouth.
because I don't know about you, but the firms that I worked with coming out of school, they had no, they had a website, but it was never updated. It looked like it was built in the 90s. There was no, you know what I mean? There wasn't any active, as opposed to now where, obviously the larger firms, I think most firms have a pretty, informative website. Um, but I think it's still you're still the majority of it is that client relationship building, and you got to build that trust to get those you know have those clients keep coming back and working with you.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we were doing Instagram for a while, and then we ended up stopping because after I think about like 8 months a year, I don't know if we got a single business development lead from it. I'm sure maybe some people checked it and it was like a credibility builder, but we realized that it's kind of like ends up being that unfortunate like who you know in the industry, right? And how you're connected in those relationships you're talking about are really what matters when people come down to hiring you, because it has to be a trust exercise, right? These people are trusting their projects, their big budgets on their things, their return on their investment are all on you. And just because you're on Instagram isn't going to let them trust you.
Yeah, Instagram will tell some you're in. I think you like for me when I use it, it's like I'm telling someone I'm the expert, but they don't know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like unless
Unverified, right?
yeah, it's like I can tell you I'm an expert at whatever, right? Photography and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, unless we have that working relationship, it's that I mean, it could be a good place to start. I don't think I've ever had anybody come to me and, hey, I saw your Instagram video or I listened to your podcast. Here's a ton of work, right? That's
Yeah.
rare. That doesn't happen.
No.
Um, yeah. Well, Blake, thanks for. I think this is probably a good time to stop here. Thanks for hopping on, man. I appreciate your time and thanks for sharing your story and your
Yeah, of course,
insights.
man.
Yeah.
Glad I could do this. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, man. Good
All
talking
right.
to you.
Have a good one. Bye.